welcome to everybody, and also welcome to Ronan Grealish. And Ronan is going to help us with a fantastic opportunity for you guys to learn a little bit more about sails and sail trimming. Enjoy.
Cool. Thank you, Hugh. Again, hello, everybody. May have been a little bit later joining. My name is Ronan, and I work for North Sails. Through working for North Sails, I'm very, very lucky to get to sail on some really cool boats all over the world, and get to do my hobby as a job, which is amazingly lucky. And hopefully, once lockdown is over, we'll be able to get back to it. So what I want to talk to you guys about is the basics, or the fundamentals of trimming, and I'm going to concentrate this evening on the mainsail. I would imagine that most sailors on the call tonight are going to be Optimus sailors, Terra sailors, potentially FIVA sailors. Maybe in the chat, if there's any other sailors of other boats that would like any input or any help, just shout and we'll do our best to try and help. Hugh, do I have control to? Yes, I can share screen.
Yeah, you do.
Perfect.
So really, guys, use that chat function. So if you've got any questions at all, please be really, really enthusiastic about using the chat so we can make sure we've got any of your questions answered by the time we get to the end.
Okay, so can everybody see a sail on the screen?
I can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so guys, this is a really cool tool that I've got the ability to use through my job. Again, getting back to my main role is to work with cruiser racers or bigger boats. So the tools that I use on a daily basis are tools like this. This is, without getting too technical, this is a tool that is used to show the output of changes that you make to your sail and how it affects different parts of your boat. So if we look up at the top corner, in this box up here, we've got a boat speed of what the boat speed is actually doing, so 6.2 knots, and a target boat speed. We've also got a heel. So heel is how much the boat is turning over. If I go over here and increase the wind speed, the boat heels over more. On your boats, in order to stop the boat heeling, you guys have to hike. The harder you hike, generally, the faster you go.
Here's a question for you guys. So if you were hiking out now, what would happen to the boat? Get the answers on the chat. Which way would the boat and the mast tip, right or left? If you hiked out super hard.
So on big boats, we've got generally a load of people sitting up on the high side of the boat to help it. But we've also got controls to stop the boat tipping over. If we were to ease our main sheet, which is either on, boat heels over even more, easing our mainsail or letting it out of it, reduces the heel and allows the boat to go faster. But we have to be careful, because if we let our mainsail out too much, what generally happens if you let your mainsail out? I would say that you will eventually get a flappy sail, and a flappy sail is an unhappy sail. So we need to find a perfect scenario for putting your mainsail in to go upwind. But the important thing, and using this tool to help us, is what I want to show you is the controls that a bigger boat has that you mightn't necessarily have to control it. So I'm going to change the view again to go back. So I'm going to look up the sail. So this is the sail view that you would have if you're sitting in your Optimist or your Terra, looking up your mainsail. As you sheet on your mainsail, the leech of the sail, which is the trailing edge, gets tighter. As you get tighter, the boat heels over more. So in order to stop the boat heeling in your dinghy, you have to hike really hard. Some boats will have, no, Optimists don't, and Terrace don't have a traveler. So a traveler is a control to allow the boom to go up or down, which will reduce your heel if you let the traveler down. But one of the things that you guys have that's really, really important is a Cunningham. So does everybody know what a Cunningham does on their boat? Yes?
If you know what it is, then type into the chat what it does to the boat's sail.
Okay. So a Cunningham is a very, very good tool for flattening your sail. So I'm going to simulate you pulling your Cunningham on. So as we go Cunningham on, these stripes here are called draft stripes. So they show you how much depth or how much volume is in your sail. As you pull your Cunningham on, you're going to flatten your sail. And by flattening your sail, it reduces your heel and it allows you to go faster. So as I've gone Cunningham on, our boat speed has gone up. I've got a magic wand here. So if we're in a perfect world, I'm going to hit the magic wand and it's going to put everything into the perfect setup for these conditions. So what I needed to do was pull my backstay all the way on, because when it gets really, really windy, you want to have a twisty sail, because having your leech soft or twisty stops the boat heeling over and stops you having to hike as hard. If you guys reduce or if you sheet harder, so for instance, one of the things that you guys will notice on your Terra or on your Optimist, if you sheet really, really hard, what happens to your rudder? Does it start pulling or do you have to push more?
Oh, that's a good question. So when you're pulling the main sheet on your rudder, do you end up with it pulling or pushing on the rudder? On the chat, quick as you can. You got 20 seconds on the chat to get your answer onto Roman.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sheet on, and what we need to look at, so this computer tool will show us what the effect of pulling the main sheet on has on your rudder. So your rudder, when you're going upwind, if you let go of your rudder, when you're sailing to windward, generally, if you let go, the boat wants to go into the wind and essentially either stop head to wind or will tap if you've got your main sheet pulled in hard. So that is called having rudder angle or having bite in your rudder. Different people will call it different things. But as it gets windier, you'll always have rudder. If I sheet on here, look at this rudder number here. So as I sheet harder, that rudder increases, which means we're slowing the boat down because you're pulling the rudder more and the rudder is drag. As I ease the main sheet, rudder angle drops and boat speed starts to increase. Everybody see that? So we started at 5, sheeted on the mainsail. So the leech of the mainsail gets tighter. The boat will heel over more. So if I go to the other view, so I'm going to go behind the boat again. So this is us going upwind really nicely. We're going to go back to magic. So this is boat going really well. We're doing 6 knots upwind. The rudder is in a good position and the main sheet is correct for the wind speed. If we sheet too hard, the boat tips over. The rudder angle increases and the boat speed has slowed by half a knot. So that is because we're overheeling the boat. Is that too complicated or do I need to back it off a bit here, guys?
I think that's okay. I think that's good. It's nice to see the look from the back on when the main sheet comes on, how the heel changes. That's something that we can all relate to in our little optimists or terrors or fevers or and anything else.
Okay. So
maybe you could show us the backstay, how the backstay, which is basically like the vang, or sorry, the kicker on your terror or your fever, how that changes things.
Okay, perfect. So this at the moment, guys. So we're in really windy conditions. It's 16 knots, so it's a proper windy day. We've got white caps and nice waves on your race course, and everybody is hiking as hard as they can. So our backstay is currently, or our kicker or our vang, will be on really hard going upwind, which allows you to ease your main sheet so you don't overheel, but at the same time you've flattened your mainsail. So backstay on a big boat does two things. It flattens your main. So if I go back to the other view just to show you what it's doing, so looking up the sail, if I ease backstay without changing the main sheet or the traveler or anything else, the leech gets tighter. If there's anybody that's sailing a Terra, you will see one of the other things that your backstay does is it has a huge effect on your forestay. So if you're in a dinghy that has a jib as well, as you soften your backstay or as you soften your vang or your leech tension, your forestay, which is the front sail or the lead edge of your front sail, disappears as you soften it. So in order to go upwind, you need to have good sheet tension. So the harder that you sheet generally, the closer you can get to the wind, but it's generally at the detriment of your boat speed. So you're always finding that happy medium where you're going fast enough, but also going high enough. And that's what the really good guys get good at, is finding that happy place of speed and height. Okay, so just going to go back behind the boat again, and I'm going to do the complete opposite. So this is a windy day, but let's go to a really, really light day. So I'm going to reduce the wind speed all the way down to 6 knots. So this is about the lightest that most people can sail in. I haven't changed any of the sail controls on the boat, but the wind speed has gone. So this is one of those days where you're on the river and all you're looking for now is power. So you can't get the boat to go. Generally, for you guys, you're going to be sitting to leeward. You're trying to tip the boat over. So this boat is currently set up for loads of wind. Just going to hit my magic wand and we're going to look at what changes here. So backstay has gone down. So now we've got no backstay on because we want to make the sails really, really powerful. Your vang is going to be eased because you want the sail to be as deep and powerful as you can. Your main sheet tension is generally kept about the same, for the reason being, if you let your mainsail out, you're not going to be able to go upwind. So you need to keep your main sheet in, but the big thing is you've increased the depth of the sail. So we've heeled the boat over a little bit by giving all the controls to make that sail as powerful and as deep as possible. So if we look from your sailor's position again, so now we've got a really good deep curvature in the sails. Your telltales are flying all the time because that's really important when it's light winds, that you don't stall your telltales. If the telltales are stalled, it's very, very hard to accelerate your boat. So that's the control, that's the difference in light winds to heavy winds. I'm just conscious of getting too deep into this and losing you all, so I'm just trying to be careful.
So Ronan, maybe a really nice thing is if we get the sailors to tell us a condition they think they'd experience out sailing off Lymington, and then maybe we could try and set up the sail to match what that would look like. Because the thing that's important for you guys to know and learn is what the what the shapes that we have in the sails here, as Ronan can show you on these white stripes across the grey mainsail, what shapes we want to create in the sail for when we're sailing. So was anybody out sailing over the last couple of days, oppie sailors or laser sailors? Anybody like that? Is anybody sailing over the last couple of days? And if you were sailing, can you tell us how much wind you were sailing in? Oh, Ben Anderson was sailing. How much wind were you sailing in, Ben? 19 knots.
Whoa.
Okay. All right. So Ronan can set it for 19 knots approximately. Yeah,
I'm going to get 16 as maxed out.
Okay, 20 knots. Oh, 20. We got lots of people in
really
quite windy stuff.
Okay, so just getting back to the windy stuff. So the really important thing for me when it's windy is to keep the boat under control. So in order to do that, and potentially there might be some of the coaches on here that's going to help in particular for the types of boats that you sail. But when it gets windy, it's really, really important for me to have what I would call a forgiving setup. So we can't sheet the sails really, really hard, because every time a gust comes when it's windy, the boat will want to tip over more. It'll overheel, and it's very, very hard to keep the boat pointing in a constant direction upwind. If you've got a softer mainsail, so let's ease our mainsail a little bit. You don't have a traveler, but we can increase our backstay, because backstay for you, or for you guys, going vang on will twist. So as you go vang on, this upper edge of the sail will twist more. So I'm simulating your vang going on. So as you see, this upper part of your sail opens up. The telltales work really, really easily, or are constantly flying. And this upper part of the sail gets really flat. As that gets flatter, that reduces your heeling moment. So again, if I go back to looking from behind the boat, as we go backstay on, so let's go back to, sorry, as we go vang on, so boat comes upright as we go vang on. So that makes it easier for you guys to sail the boat. But one of the other things that you can see, if you look at the angle of where the boat is going, as you reduce your heel, the boat will naturally want to point higher for you.
Oh, that's clever.
Because as you're overheeling, you're constantly pulling the rudder towards you. As you reduce your rudder angle, because you've twisted your sails, the boat's naturally wanting to come up and unload for you, and it just makes the boat much, much easier to sail. So a really, really important thing to remember when it's windy and when it's bumpy conditions, to have twisty sails. And by twisty sails, I mean not too hard leech tension. Okay?
Sounds good. And Ronan, maybe for those who are potentially fever sailors, so then when you have a windy setup for the so when you have the when you've got the jib interacting with the mainsail,
yeah,
then what might the fever sailors want to do with their jib when they're looking at their setup when it gets windy?
Okay, so I'm just going to change the view to the jib. So looking up, so again, this tool is a little bit different, but so this is looking up the front sail of the boat. Similarly, so let's see, so we're going to go all the way from light conditions to windy conditions. So let's start with, I'm going to stop. Okay, so we're going to start at 8 knots. And I'm going to go magic wand, see how the sail looks. So magic wand, in light conditions, you want to have a relatively soft forestay. So by having a softer forestay, that means that you have to ease your vang, because that will allow the mast to straighten up. And by straightening your mast, that allows your forestay to go softer. Having a softer forestay makes your head sail much, much deeper. So if you're looking at the draft stripe here, this front leading edge is really, really deep, which gives you lots and lots of power to tip the boat over, create heel, and get going. As it gets windier, what you need to do in order to stop the boat heeling over is you need to straighten that. So on your FIVA, in order to bend your mast, you will generally use your vang. So the vang on our scenario here is our backstay. So as we go vang on, your mainsail is going to, or your vang is going to bend your mast. As you bend your mast, you see here your forestay gets straighter and tighter, and it flattens the sail. Okay?
Very cool.
So as you go more and more vang on, you flatten both the mainsail because you're bending your mast, but by bending your mast, you're also straightening your forestay, which gives you a flatter jib and allows you to point higher in windier conditions. Again, we always need to remember that we can't take height or sailing closer to the wind, because the drawback to that is your boat speed. So you always have to be careful that you don't make your sails too flat for the conditions. So it's all well and good saying we're going to make really, really flat sails and sail like an America's Cup boat at 15 degrees apparent, doing 30 knots upwind, but that won't happen on most people's boats. So we do have to be careful that we don't make our sails too flat. So the big thing for me is always, if in doubt, let it out. It's always easier to get up to boat speed by easing your main sheet, easing your vang, all the controls that you have. The easiest way to increase boat speed is to let your sails out a little bit, re-engage, and then look for your height again. That's the one thing that I will try and instill into everybody before we get away from today, is speed is your friend, height will come later. Okay?
That sounds really good. So, Ronan, I wonder if now is a good opportunity for us to look a little bit at some of the practical side of it with the sailcloth. What do you think?
Exactly. So one of the things, guys, in terms of doing your Settled Cup stuff, everybody's going to have different ideas on how they want to set up their boats. I have just started with a blank sheet of paper, hopefully on the screen here. So to make it easy for everybody to scale, my luff length on my mainsail is going to be 500 millimeters or half a meter. The foot length or the boom length is going to be 200 millimeters. And these I've got pre-made, but I'm going to show you what I have done in order to get that. So with your pieces of cloth, you can get back to this later. We don't have to do it now because we will lose time quickly. But essentially what I want to show you is the principles of making a mainsail. So I'm working on the premise that my luff length is 500 mil and my foot length is 200 mil. From that, I have drawn, so I've cut out an oversized piece of cloth. But these dark black lines here, so that is my 500 mil. This is my foot, and this is the leech of the sail in a straight line from the head of the sail to the clew. Okay? As you can see, and hopefully I'm not sure if you can see this very well on camera, but this is a flat piece of cloth. There is absolutely no shape in this. So it's just cut out, absolutely no shape. If you pull on the edges, you'll see that there's resistance to stretch in the cloth. Okay, everybody's got that? But what I want to show you guys is creating or putting some shape into a sail. So it's a bit, okay, here we go. So what I want to do is, if we get everybody, where do I go from here? So what I have done is I have cut on this one, in fact. So I want to create shape into the mainsail itself. So I've drawn 3 lines which are equidistant up the leach of the sail. So I've got a measurement point at 135 mil up, 270 mil, and give or take it's 405, but 400 mil up.
So 135.
Yeah.
200 and
270.
270 and
405. So that's assuming that our leach length is 540 mil for the triangle. Okay.
Okay, so guys, so if you got helping mums and dads, which hopefully you have, well done, the Hutchinson household, you know, and Alex, good. Right, so draw your triangle, 500 on the luff, 200 on the bottom. That should mean that the triangle leach, the hypotenuse is 540. And then from the foot up, you're measuring off 135, 270 and 405. Is that from the vertically from the foot, Ronan, or is that along the hypotenuse?
It's
along.
You don't need to be that technical. Essentially, what we're trying to get to here is to create some shape into the sail. So if we go back to this sail, I've got 3 lines which don't go all the way to the luff. So again, starting from the leach and going pretty much 3/4 of the way in.
Cool.
Okay.
So, Ronan, why is it important to have those little points there? What are we going to use those for?
So these points are essentially going, so we are going to slice these points.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by slicing these points, we are going to create shape into the back edge of your sail, well, into the whole sail. So rather than you having a flat piece of cloth, you're going to create curvature in your sail.
And that's what you saw in the model that Ronan showed you earlier. Right? So in Ronan's model, in the sail had shape created just like he's suggesting we do now on this piece of cloth. Yeah. So Ronan's going to hopefully show you now how to do it.
So I'm conscious that I don't want to get ahead of people, but at the same time, we could be a while here. So what I'm going to do is just do one stripe for now. So hopefully you can still see me. I'm on the camera. Yeah.
All good.
So, did people pick up some double-sided tape? Hopefully.
Hopefully.
When I went, there was none there. There was only this flat.
Oh, well, I'm sure your dad can go and find you some double-sided tape from somewhere, Rafi. Or even single-sided tape might be.
I do.
Parents desperately searching for tape around the house right now.
Yeah.
Where's the tape gone?
Okay. So what I want to show you guys is, so we've got some of the double-sided tape. I'm going to stick the double-sided tape so again, I've drawn my stripe onto where I want to cut, and I'm going to put my double-sided tape straight on top of that. Okay? So laying it to where I want to go, and straight down. So tape is on. And next job is I'm going to cut straight up the middle of this.
So are you cutting up the middle of the tape, Ronan, or to one side of it?
Straight up the middle of the tape.
Okay. So for everybody's benefit, this call is being recorded, and we will aim to try and get this out to people on the WhatsApp, on the Sailing Club's talks page. Yeah. So if you aren't able to do this now, this will be recorded, and you will be able to do it. There we go. Look at that.
So now we've cut our sail. So this looks horrible. This isn't the way you want your mainsail to look. But essentially, what I want to do next is take off the top of the tape, so we just see the tape itself. So I'm going to pull off the protection, essentially.
The Hutchison household are getting right into this. There's a lot of mum and dad involved. Great work. The White household too. Dad looks engrossed. Here we go.
So
the moment of truth.
Double-sided tape onto the line, both sides. This is now where sail making comes into it, and it is very much suck it and see to find out where you want your sail to end up. So I would suggest that the tape width is 12 mil. You don't want to go over the tape width. So essentially, by tape width, I mean the double-sided sticky tape itself. I'm going to overlap this. So because the sail is quite small, if I overlap by a small amount, it will create less shape. If I go by a big amount, it creates a lot of shape. So I'm going to lower it down. And what I'm trying to do is to put the top on top of the bottom, but just overlap it by probably 2 or 3 mil. Parents at home are probably giving out to me now going, I really don't want to be doing this with my children, but this is where we're at.
So now you should be laying the top piece of cloth on top of the sticky tape that is on the bottom piece. And that should then pull the peak. There we go, look.
So now, if you look, essentially where this one up here is super flat, this one now has curvature. So you've created shape into that part of the sail. One of the reasons that we've got a big overlap to, this is eventually once we cut down, we're going to have, this is the working part of the sail we want to get to, but we've left a big overlap here that we will cut off later because we've pulled one edge down, so this edge has gone up. So if we do it 3 times, essentially we're going to change the leech length. So we've got more room down here to get back to where we were, so we still get back to our 540 measurement, okay? So we've got to cut along here to create a shape in this one. I'm going to do the same on the next one up. So piece of tape, cutting a short piece of tape, it's probably 70 mil long. I lay it down on top of the sail on that stripe that I made, and I'm going to get my scissors, and don't be afraid to experiment with this. So I haven't, this can come apart as much as we want. So I'm going to cut into that again, halfway.
So that leaves you with a piece of tape on the bottom and the top edges of the, that's it, yes.
Yeah. So I'm halfway along that tape. I'm going to take off the cover again.
You just take it off on the bottom one, Ronan?
Yes, I've taken it off on the bottom one as well. And then essentially overlapping a little bit. So letting the sail get to where it wants to get. So if we look here, hopefully it's hard with the cameras, but if you look at the leech, where we started was, it was out here, and then I've done an overlap. So it's not huge. I've probably only put in maybe 3 mil of overlap, but now that has created quite a lot of shape into that sail. So now instead of it being a flat sail that it was, it's now got seam shape all the way up through here.
I can see that already. So
Yeah.
there's depth now through in the middle of the sail, so from the leech to the luff. That's cool.
Now you have an aerofoil or you've got a curved shape. So in order for the wind to go over it and to push you forward, there needs to be a difference. So the wind goes over the front and the back of the sail, and in order for it to push you forward, it needs to travel a longer distance around the back of the sail to make you go forward. And that's the reason why we're creating shape in here. Okay? It all seems really, really difficult, but the really cool thing about this is it's just sticky tape. It's just a little piece of cloth. If I've made a mistake, I'm more than happy to pull it apart on both seams. It's no problem whatsoever. I didn't rub it down too much. Pull it apart and try again. And really cool thing. So sail making and the art of sail making for the good sail makers is they will go over and over again in order to get the shape they want. By changing this on our little sail here, we're doing 1 or 2 mil. On a big sail on a super yacht, you could be putting in shape here of 100 mil, and that makes a huge difference. So everything that we learn here is expanded up to massive, massive boats like Ghost.
So everybody at home that's had a little bit of a go about this, can you show up to the camera the little bits of shaping you've done? Oh, in the Sheraton household, we've got 2 battens worth of shape. Yeah, that's some curvature there. Oh wow, the one on the right's got a lot of depth. Oh, here we go, and then the Breeze household, and then the Hutchinsons, and Felix and Rupert. Wow, very cool.
That is really, really cool.
Good job, guys. So, guys, what have you learned from doing this cutting and putting in? What have you learned that you can do to help create some shape in your sails? What happens when you what happens to the shape when you end up pulling the trailing edge of the leech together? Felix and Rupert, what's happened to your sail now? Felix and Rupert, can you unmic yourself and tell us what's happened to yourself?
It's got lots and lots of curvature.
Brilliant.
That is exactly what we want.
Very cool. Great.
Okay, so hopefully some of you guys have picked up some of the, so just to keep this moving, we're only going to do the 2 for now. You guys in your own time can do a 3rd one. If some people are going to do really big sails, you can put more slots in. So if you're going to have a 1 meter luff length, because the rules for the Setley Cup are you're allowed to have 1 meter tall and 500 mil foot length. Okay, within a box, so you can spin your sails around if you're going to have 2 sails. But we're just concentrating on the main for now. So all of this can be scaled up or scaled down depending on the size of your boat. 500 is right in the middle. One of the things that was also left in the box, and hopefully some of you picked up, was just some insignia. So the reason for having the insignia is, as we've done your slices now, the sail is really sticky. So to tidy that up, once you're happy with where you are, we're just going to get a line of insignia. And this, because your sail is so small, this is essentially going to work like a batten. So it's going to create some structure in the back of the sail to keep that section tidy and straight. So all the stickiness that was there is now covered up by your batten, and you can actually see the curvature that we've created on the back of the sail. Okay? So I'm going to keep moving on. The next thing that I'm going to do, and again, you guys don't have to go straight into this, but is essentially finishing off by trimming the sail. So one thing I want to ask, and Hugh will hopefully help with prompting on this. At the moment, we've just got a triangle. Most sails that have battens will have a little bit of extra curvature at the back of your leech, which is called roach. In order to create that, or to keep that supported, we're going to use this reinforcement as a batten. So what I would suggest is when we put these reinforcements on, so I'll do the next one as well, that we depending on how punchy you want to be, but you can put a dot outside of the line of your straight line to create some extra area on your sail. So this is called roach. What I would suggest is we put a dot at each of these slices that we're going to do. So we will have 3 points, and then we will end up getting a ruler and joining those dots, and then we will shape the sail to that. So I'm just going to put my head down for a second and do that myself so I can show you what we're trying to get to.
So whilst Ronan's doing that, so what we're doing now is, because Ronan's made his sail on the piece of sailcloth oversized, and now, as he said, he's put the shape in, and now he's cutting, he's going to basically draw a line between the ends of each of the battens to then cut the leech, the roach of the sail into the sail. So that's why it's important, if and as and when you're doing this later, then you have the leech of the sail, the line you're drawing on inside a little bit smaller than the actual piece of cloth you overall cut it. And then once you've got that done, then you're going to cut between each of the battens, and that's going to help create your nice leech for your mainsail. And that's going to equally be, oh, there we go. The Sherrington household's got a fully curvy one.
Nice. So depending on how easy you are.
There we go. This is like Blue Peter. Ronan's in full flow here. Here's one he prepared earlier. Well, no, you're not even getting that today. You're getting it actually done in practice right in front of you. So Ronan's now he's joined up the dots between each of the batten ends, and now he's just cut the excess cloth off, and he's just finishing off at the top there. So now hopefully you can see the sails are slightly smaller than it was. And actually, even from there, and it looked flat, I can see there's curvature in those little batten pieces.
There is curvature in the sail now. So all of this is giving you positive drive. If you just had a flat piece of cloth, which is, so we started with a sail like that, as I hold it up, oops, sorry, but that's just flat. There is no curvature, there is no drive from that sail. By putting shape in, so we've shaped one side of the sail. In order to shape the other side, you can put in what's called luff curve. Does anybody know what luff curve is? Hugh?
So that we've just put shape into the back edge of the sail. If we want to put shape into the front edge, then usually what we do, that's kind of like when we have our straight mast on our terror, and then we put a lot of kicker on, we bend the mast, and then the sail ends up having a different shape than it was when it was straight. So when Ronan's got this straight edge of this front leading edge of the sail here, if he now puts that to a curved surface, yeah, like his ruler, if he bends it or something, then all of a sudden the sail is stretched to the ruler, then you'll start to see how the sail can get manipulated into different shapes.
So most people, for Settley pond boats, I would suggest that you're not going to need luff curve, for the reason being, what you get to use for your mast is going to be relatively straight and it's going to be self-supporting. If you put a load of curvature into it, then you need to fill up that space between the straight line of the sail and the bendy mast. But I would suggest that anybody that's going to get a piece of bamboo or plastic pipe, there isn't going to be curvature in that. So when it's self-supporting, you don't need, for me, you don't need to put luff curve in because you don't have a means to bend your second pond boat. So it's something that can be considered, but I would suggest it's a step that doesn't need to be taken for most people.
And also, you've Ronan, you've just put in the shape that the sail needs by using the leech, the horizontal cuts down the leech.
Exactly.
So because of that, we don't need to do luff curve on the front edge of the sail.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so basically, that's your sail.
So this is essentially the sail that we could have, or we could put onto a boat now. Again, I need to trim my foot and my luff. With that insignia that you guys had as well, I would suggest that you use your insignia.
And for those who didn't pick up any insignia, you could use just some extra tape that you've got lying around at home. You know, you could just use sellotape and double up a few layers of sellotape on the area. You know, so extra layers of tape will achieve equally the battens as much as doing this, what Ronan's just showing you now.
Or the offcuts of the sail that you've cut off.
Exactly.
You can use those to reinforce your sail. So depending on whether you've picked up some of that insignia, you can use that to make your little reinforcement patches for your clue and your head and your tack in order to attach them to your boat. And
they're just little triangles. They're just, so, you know, if you had a square, you just chop a square in half, right?
Yeah, so I've just made a little shape, which is a round edge and going into the corner.
And Ronan, why are we doing that? What is that to try and make sure that we don't pull the cloth, any of the attachment points through the cloth?
Exactly. So because we're tying on to this point, this is going to share the load of where the sail is being point loaded. So the bigger on a big boat, it needs to be a huge patch. On our little boat, it can be a tiny little patch that will get stuck onto. So let's just do it.
Each of the three corners, basically. Yeah. You have a little piece of reinforcement at each of the corners, and then when you put the hole through to then tie on to your tack, leech. There we go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Each of the corners will have a piece of reinforcement that you're going to tie onto your.
So, Rafi, I think that's what you've got. You've got a piece of insignia cloth, which is a sticky, which is the reinforcing stuff.
It looks like sail number stuff.
Exactly, that's what it is. Correct.
So I left some black and white down at the club, as well as the spinnaker material and the double-sided tape. I think, unfortunately, Rafi, you got there late and it's all been taken.
Well, I'm sure that we might be able to get some more. Rustle some up. Yeah.
We'll get some more.
So I mean, basically, you've now had a lesson in how to make a sail guides. Ronan, is there anything else they need to think about, or is that pretty much them done?
No. So the final thing. So that was just talking about making the sail. The final thing is, this is Eddie's boat from last year. Don't make the sails too big, which we did, and we capsized all the time. One of the things that we did last year as well was we used quite heavy material. This is much too heavy for the little boats, and this material, the spinnaker material that we were working with, is much easier to work with and better for smaller boats. Myself and Eddie and Claude are going to be playing over Christmas Day, making a new revision to our catamaran, and hopefully we're going to go and play with it Boxing Day and see if we can get across the pond without capsizing again. But we've added some foils to try and be like an America's Cup boat. Hopefully it's going to get out of the water. But that was our creation. One of the important things we talked about earlier was balance. On our boat, we drilled probably 4 different points for where we were going to put our mast. In order to get your boat to go straight, that's one of the biggest things that I think will affect you, is where you position your mast on your boat. So we had to have a go where we tried 3 or 4 different points. That's a nice trick for people, is if your boat isn't going straight, so if it's going into the wind all the time, your mast is more than likely too far back. And if it's bearing away all the time, your mast is probably too far forward. Okay? That's
good tips.
The things that we've learned in our couple of years. We still haven't won the Setley Cup, and I'm sure there's loads of people on here that are way more experienced than we are. But maybe they could pipe up and give us some tips.
Hey guys, I think Ronan's done a fantastic job this evening of doing a little bit of theory and then some really great practical stuff. What do you guys reckon? There's a lot of clapping going on. Well done, Ronan. Thank you very, very much. Fantastic. Hey, shall we all? I'd just like to wish everybody a very happy Christmas. Stay safe. Ronan, thank you ever so much again. Maybe the kids can all give them a big thank you very much and a happy Christmas by unmuting yourselves and saying happy Christmas.
Just before we go, there are some questions coming in.
Yeah.
So we should probably try and do some of the questions before we go.
Yeah, hang on. Let me. Sorry, my mistake. Okay, we have a few questions.
Yes.
Oh, we had a couple of questions. What would you use for battens? I think we've answered that with extra tape.
Yeah. So we used cocktail sticks last year, and they were much too stiff. So extra tape is generally more than sufficient for the light sails. Doubling up your tape is good for battens. For drilling the hole on your boat, we just used a drill bit. So our boat is made from foam, and we just drilled into the foam. I'm not sure how other people's boats will be made, but that was
and Ronan, for the sail, if you were putting a hole through the sail, what would you use to do that?
A hole punch, or, well, yeah, again. So the end of a scissors.
Cool.
So if you just stab it with the pointy bit of the scissors, again, don't do it on your dining room table. Get a block of wood or something to go underneath it, but reinforce the corner of the sail, and then the point of your scissors, or if your dad has something in the toolbox that is sharper, that will work too, or your mum.
Well done. Hey, sorry for interrupting before, but thanks, Ronan. That was brilliant. I'm sure everybody would want to thank you very much themselves. But
cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ronan.
Yes.
Thank you. Given on.
Everybody happy?
brilliant. What do you think, Eddie? Did he do okay?
Better get cooking dinner then. I've been doing
Daddy, hurry
dinner's
up.
not ready. Take
Get
your time.
home.
Come home, Daddy.
Bye.
Thanks, buddy. That was great.
Okay, see
Fantastic.
you soon. Have
See
a
you
lovely
soon.
Christmas.
You too. Bye-bye.